Hello and welcome to the Expat Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Annie.
And I'm your host, Steve.
And in this podcast, we're going to explore the reality of living life as an expat in Australia and what it really means to feel like you belong.
Join us as we uncover the challenges and opportunities that expat life presents on the search for settled.
With our stories, tips and interviews, see us as your two friends to help you navigate expat life abroad. Just to let you know, this video podcast series is brought to you by the team at Auric Migration and Mobility. Now, Auric have helped us personally with my visa process to Australia, and we only know too well how difficult the entire process can be if you're doing it by yourself. They have also helped hundreds of our followers, and they're offering our listeners an initial assessment for free. Email them your visa situation, questions or concerns, and they will get back to you at no extra cost. Simply mention the Expat Reality Podcast when you email them at migration@auric.com. Auric is spelled AUREC. So that's migration@auric.com. Hello and welcome back to the Expat Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Annie.
And I'm your co-host, Steve.
And we're on episode 5, everybody. I can't believe we've actually made it to 5 episodes.
We've actually made it to number 5. Can you believe that? I'm kind of pinching myself right now that we got this far.
I know. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening or watching and for all the messages and comments that you've been sending us on our social media channels. It has been awesome to hear that everyone's enjoying it so far. So thank you so much. In this episode today, we are going to be talking about the things that we actually love about Australia. So in our last episode, we talked about all the things that we missed about England. So we felt like it was very necessary to talk about why we're actually living in Australia and what we love about it.
Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, there's anything from the fresh air, the barbecues, the outdoor lifestyle, like the nature. There is so much to love about this country. I mean, you know, you could draw up a list of 100 things. So I think it's a good time to explore them, get amongst them and find out what makes Australia unique and special.
But let's just take a moment here to recognise and to pay our respects as well to the Queen's passing. And we're recording this the day before her funeral.
Yeah.
If you are an expat as well, then you might be feeling a bit like me. I've been feeling really homesick since they announced it. And I feel very far away from home right now. And I've been watching it all on the TV and really wishing I was there. And I totally would have lined up for 12 hours to go and pay my respects. I know some people may have not have done, but I think for me it would have been such a huge moment in history to have done that myself. So, you know, if you are feeling super homesick as well, then maybe this episode might, you might find it a bit reassuring to realise why you are here as well. But also we hope you find it a bit entertaining because there are some random things that we like about Australia. And also, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about moving over, then, maybe this episode might prepare you in some kind of way.
Well, it might prep you for the things that, you kind of wonder might be here. And we're going to unveil them.
We're going to unveil them. And luckily for us, we've got an Australian right here who is
tips.
very accustomed to this country. So actually, it's kind of funny because things that I might find really random here, you'd be like, oh, that's just normal. And I'm like, what? That's so not normal to me. But
sneak peek, think meat raffle.
Yeah, if you don't know what a meat raffle is, very, very random, but very weirdly Australian. So, and it's not something I personally love about Australia. It's just something that's very random.
It's all about the barbecue. Now, that's a big step from Tesco barbecues. I can only think Brighton Beach, just like covered in used like barbecue, like, cheapo one-use barbecue from Tesco. No, I just don't think that's a cool thing. We do it way better in Australia. We do it properly.
Do it properly.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, I think we should get started into this episode. What do you reckon, Steve?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's kick off. What do we got? What do you got for me, Annie? What's the?
All right, I think we should probably talk about space, which is one thing I love about this country is the feeling of not feeling like you're closed in. This country is ginormous. Like, it is so massive. It blows my mind, like how big it really is. And actually, it makes me wish that I appreciated England and the UK a lot more. Like, I've never been to Scotland, which is just mind blowing to me now, thinking like how far I've driven around Australia and how many times I've done it. And like I've never even been to Scotland. So that I find that really weird.
Yeah. I think, like compared to the size of England, I think England fits into Australia like, probably like 20 or 30 times
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
like 29, I think.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well,
Isn't that mad?
there you go. I mean, you just think of the distances involved there. And like, as we said in the previous episode, going down the road is a vastly different thing here. To what it is in England. So, yeah, no, the space is good. And I think, like, just having that expanse in front of you with no buildings and, like, nothing else around, big, wide open vistas, and you can see, like, and you stand on a mountain and look across, across a mountain ranges with no houses or anything like that on it, completely clear. That's something pretty special, I think, about here.
It's kind of, I always remember when I first came over with you and we would drive up to Newcastle from Sydney to go and see your family. And it's like once you get to the sort of Hawkesbury area and then it just all opens out. And I'd always say to Steve, like, this should technically be like another city right here. And it's not. And it just always blows my mind all the time, wherever we are. I'm like, how is this not another town or another city like what you would see in the UK, obviously? So that's really bizarre, but also amazing to have that sense of space. And when we did go back to live in England in 2018, I really noticed the lack of space then that we had.
Well, yeah, and like there was one area we used to go up to, like Devil's Dyke. Like there's in Brighton, yeah, there's a nice vista out there, but still, like you're still looking out over onto people's farms and stuff. So, yeah, it's not quite the same. I think there's that real sense of being isolated that is something that Australia does pretty well. It's not hard.
Yeah, for sure. And I also love the fresh air as well in Australia. Like even in Sydney, the air's fresh. And if I go back to London, I like constantly need like a shower as soon as I've got in from the day because it's like all the pollution and smog and like you really notice the difference. And then you kind of stop and go, wow, actually we're really lucky where we live, like to be surrounded by ocean everywhere. And it does feel very clean and fresh here, which is going on to the clean topic as well. One thing I'd always notice coming back to Australia is like how clean it is. Like we live in Sunshine Coast now and it is so clean here. It's ridiculous. And I remember when we did live back in Brighton in 2018, I remember I fell asleep on the beach and I woke up to like a crisp packet flying in my face and I was like, oh my God, like really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very pleasant having to, sleep in other people's rubbish on the beach. So, I mean, it's a rarer thing in Australia. It's not like you're going to see that everywhere. So I think people are fairly, they're clean. There's less people. So it's there's not as much opportunity for people to drop a quaver packet.
I just find, I don't know what it is, but people in Australia know how to use a bin like properly, and which is really lovely to see. And also, you don't ever see like chewing gum on the floor. I don't know whether that's just a Brighton thing, but we used to see like chewing gum everywhere.
There's little bits in the city, but it's a rarer thing, definitely.
What were you saying earlier about people?
Pee-peeing in the street. Like why would you do that? I'm trying to be kind of nice with the whole urination thing, but basically. People just decide because, probably the public toilets are not the most cleanly. So you're thinking, you know what, I'm just going to go here in the street. I'm just going to sneak around the bush. And everywhere you walk in Brighton, I had these little wafts of like pee. Like, oh, why are you peeing here for? Like, pee at home. Go to a pub. There's loads of them. You can walk in the door and go there. Just don't do it in the bush. Like, what is that all about? And then like people do all sorts of random things. Like you got the kind of, party people like 3 a.m, they're puking all over the side of the street. You've got kind of the stench in the morning of that. Imagine you're trying to walk your dog in the morning and there's a bit of leftover party vom just on the side of the street.
I think we're talking very specifically about Brighton though.
We are, yeah.
I have been to lots of other villages and towns in the UK that are very clean and lovely. So that's not a generalisation.
No party vom.
But I've just noticed that more in Australia is very clean here, which is great. And also that's probably the reason why is because it's not that busy here. So there's not that many people. And I always find it so funny, like how people always complain about how traffic is like really hectic in Sydney, and I was just saying to Steve earlier, like how I was on like one of the Facebook pages for like Brits or whatever, and someone was asking about whether to move to Perth or Sunshine Coast, and then people were like, oh, don't move to Sunshine Coast, it's too busy, which is where we live now, and we're both like, what? Like, it's not busy at all. So when people say traffic's really bad, it's not that bad over here, and that's something that's just so obvious.
Well, no, I think just on that point, you've got to really plan your journeys super carefully, and we did discuss kind of traffic's that situation in another episode. So dive back and have a look at our previous episodes where we've kind of dived into the traffic scene. But essentially, anywhere in southeast England, like I think if you want to like get out, you've really got to plan ahead, and that's it's a little bit busy like around the cities in Australia, but whole different scene.
I remember when I'd commute to London in the mornings, and the train stations will always be closed because there's too many people going into them. Yeah. So you'd always be at Victoria just to stand there where the gates were locked, like waiting.
Christmas time, I remember us being like hunched in shoulder to shoulder, like the people were literally pouring into
it's mad, isn't
into
it?
the stations.
Makes you realise how many people are in England. It's insane.
It was just like literally jammed like sardines for like 5 minutes walking to the tube station. So it's just nuts. It was just really jam packed and. Yeah, and it didn't really feel like that was all that pleasant, to be honest.
Yeah. Another thing that obviously I really love about Australia, although I have to say maybe this year, maybe not so much, but is the sunshine and the weather. And the reason why I say maybe not this year is because we've had La Nina. Actually, we've had La Nina for 2 years in a row, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically where it just literally pours down with rain non-stop forever. And
it's been doing a lot of that. Look, I totally feel for everybody who's been affected by the floods. It's not pleasant in the slightest to be rained on continuously. We had a bit of a pool in our backyard form and could have taken a dip out there, I think. But, I think in general, like, it's been pretty nasty. But let's just back off, like, what it's usually like, because I think what Australia's usually like is actually pretty good. Like, it doesn't rain all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't rain like, this constant drizzle type thing. When it rains, it gets it over and done with. That's what we do in Australia. We get over and done with. Big downpour, kind of finished it now, not just dragging on.
Just like a little bit, stop.
Drizzle, it's just stop. Yeah, that sort of thing. So, yeah, in that respect, I think Australia does it really well. We have really good weather, I think, generally.
And I think also, like where we are now, so we're obviously in Sunshine Coast, and it's September, right, which basically means it's just started spring. So that's almost like it being the beginning of May, I suppose. Is that right? Like if we were in England. And today is 26 degrees, which is amazing. It's like absolutely beautiful day outside. Imagine 26 degrees in England. That'd be like a very hot day, wouldn't it? But
well, that's it. It's hotter as well, especially in London. Like if you're in the buildings and everything, there's no like airflow. So you're kind of in there and you're, oh man, it's not so good. Yeah. In Australia, there's that fresh air, you get the ocean breeze come in, it cools you down.
And yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, and that is one thing to know as well. If you are thinking about moving over here and you're worried about how hot it's going to be, to try not to compare the temperatures because they are not the same at all. Like in the UK and the summer just gone, they did have like 40-degree days, which I was a bit like, oh my God, how would you even cope with that? Because 40 degrees over here compared to 40 degrees in the UK is definitely not the same at all. And it is so much hotter in the UK because just like you said, Steve, you've got all the ocean breezes. I don't really know what else I can say in terms of why that is the way, but I know in England, like I'd be wearing a dress when it's like 19 degrees and I'd be wearing the same dress when it's like 27 here. But I don't know. It's a very weird thing.
I remember like people jamming Hyde Park as soon as it hit like 20 degrees. It was like, that's it. We're in there tanning. Not even that. It was like 15 and people were doing that,
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. And that being said as well is that what it really reminded me is that when I was growing up in England, you'd have like your 1 week holiday in the Med, and that would be pretty much the summer. Whereas now in Australia, you have like summer for like 6 months, and it just goes on and on. Where now I actually start to miss the seasons, and I miss like winter and autumn and everything because we don't really get that in Sunshine Coast. But in general, like summer's way, way longer over here, and you get to really appreciate the outdoors, which is one of the most amazing things about living over here is it's very much geared up for the outdoors. So you get well into like hiking and wild swimming. You can even go and surf and you can also go and ski as well. Probably a lot of people don't realize.
How many places can you think of where you can like ski, you can surf, and you can have a tropical rainforest all in the same kind of general vicinity? Like, I mean, the same country at least. I can't think of too many places where that's possible. It's kind of stretching that much of of latitude. It's got all those options. So it's and like on my case, we don't have the best slopes in the world, but it's fun. Everyone has fun out there, and they do things the Australian way. It's not like the Frenchies and they get out there and do their Frenchy things on. No, we do it the Aussie way.
What's the
get out
Frenchy
there.
thing? What does that mean?
I don't know. I just made it up. So, but okay, look, it's no like it's not a Val d'Isere or anything. So I'm not going to pretend it's that. But it's good, it's fun, and everyone just has a good time. And I think that's what skiing is about. But in that respect, can you also bodyboard in France or surf for that matter?
Maybe. I think you can surf in France.
Would you like to do anything like that? Like you can't go to the beach at the same time. Surely not.
Maybe. You can definitely do that in New Zealand. I remember seeing that where you could see like the mountains where you could actually ski at the same time as you could go and surf.
I'm not allowed to talk about the New Zealanders though. We're over there. That's a quick point on that actually. That's a good point. I'll just stop on that for a minute because there's this friendly rivalry. Okay, you might if you're thinking of moving to Australia, when you get here, you'll notice there's this kind of friendly rivalry, like to sort of nudge each other a bit, and the New Zealanders I'm talking about. And I like to give them a bit of a rib, and they'll give us a bit of a rib, and it's this kind of rib situation because literally New Zealand is quite stunning. It is beautiful, but they're just not as good as us. They're just not as cool or as. They're just not as cool. They're just not as nice, as.
Oh my God!
They are nice. I may have stepped on some toes there.
Someone is like digging themselves a hole.
No, look,
no,
it's all right. New Zealanders are good. I like pit pat on the heart. It is pit pat.
But talking about rivalries, what's quite interesting over here is there are so many rivalries when it comes to states and cities. Like one thing I learned when we were traveling, actually, I think before we even moved over here, was
Queensland v New South Wales.
Hang on
a minute.
I'm
just jumping in there.
Wait. Is when people would always ask Steve where he's from, and he'd go Sydney, but he'd be like, don't hate me, because what we found is that if you said you were from Melbourne, people would like, I don't know what it was, whether it was like.
There is a bit of a funny thing with like different cities. So, yeah, especially if you're like Sunshine Coast, people look at you. If you tell them you're from Melbourne, they look at you with this kind of filthy, kind of disgusted look, like, why are you here for? Whereas if you say you're from like New South Wales, it's kind of, oh, okay, yeah, okay, you're kind of cool. So there's definitely
a weird
range
thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like people from Sydney I never saw people being like even considering what other people from other states or cities were like. No one really had anything bad to say about them.
There is like there's like a rivalry though, definitely. Like the state of origin is the perfect example of the kind of rivalry
and
between.
What is that,
well, it's okay. So state of origin is an NRL kind of match, or 3 matches actually. Basically, the two states put together a team, and they just face off, and kind of 9 times out of 10 Queensland wins. Of course, they're pretty good. So, well, recently anyway. So, so it's just big thing. Everyone gets wrapped up in it. So if you're coming over from the UK, it's like you're generally going to pick a side, and it's lots of fun, and everyone gets involved. So, yeah, it's good.
Do you think there's a bit of it? There must be a divide in England, I'm guessing, north and south. Yeah, there probably definitely is. I just never even noticed it.
Oh, totally. Did you ever hear that saying, never trust a northerner?
Why are you talking in Irish
okay, well, maybe not Irish. Never trust a northerner. You know what I mean? Like that. No, trust a northerner.
Oh my God, you're trying to sound like you're from East End.
Oh, you know what I mean? Yeah, apples, pies, pears and peas. Come and grab your bangers and mash. Get them while they're hot. Strawberries are £10 a punnet. That's how much they will be now.
£10 a punnet?
Yeah, £10.
£10.
Well, they will be once, at the moment with all this, hoo-ha going on with all the pricing and everything over there. Inflation is not very good.
There you go.
And that's another point. If you're thinking of moving over here, inflation, like it hasn't had such an effect on Australia as well. So, things aren't crazy prices here just yet. So,
Well, you say that Australia is one of the most expensive countries to live in the world, though.
Yeah, well, it's not. Yeah, I mean, housing. Okay, I think everywhere housing has an issue, though. Really.
Yeah, it does. Actually, I was looking at housing in the UK recently, just because why not? So I was like, oh, I wonder what we could buy, because we want to buy a house right now, and saving is very painful. But we're like, so I was just like, oh, have a look, see what you could get. But in actual fact, what we could get over here in Queensland housing I think is like really good in comparison. So yeah, it's quite interesting actually, and considering the wages as well, because you're bound to earn more over here, I would imagine, than you would do in the UK. So
I think so, and I think the quality of housing for what you're getting for that money, I think, as you say, is a much better deal. And look at, it may not have the double like insulation on most of those places, which we've talked about in previous episodes. If you can check those out, there's a little bit to be desired in some of those properties, but you do generally get a nicer kind of open plan affair, and nice backyard and that sort of thing.
You know what? Just going on that as well, with housing, I can't remember who I was talking to once, but they said that sometimes when British people move to Australia and then they build their own houses, because it's not uncommon here to buy a plot of land and then build your own house. And they said that when people would build their house, they tried to almost replicate an English house, which is where you obviously have like separate kitchen, separate living room, and your 2 beds upstairs and whatever. And anyway, they said that when they did that, they were not going to be able to sell it as well as they would do, because Australians just don't do that sort of housing where everything's pretty much all open plan. So you'd always have like your living room and your kitchen all together in one, so they wouldn't be separated, would they?
No, that's right. And I think that people expect that open plan thing here, and so when you have that kind of closed off English thing, which has its purpose because it keeps the heat in and that sort of thing. So, and I think you got that open plan, it's much cooler. So that's why people do it, obviously. But you don't need to do that because it's not chilly, unless maybe even like Tassie or something. Maybe it'd work down there. But I think in general, it's probably better off with an open plan.
Yeah.
Open plan. Okay, moving along.
So, with everything to do with Australia, so obviously you've got the really good weather generally. You've got all the active outdoorsy stuff you can do, where you are going to be able to tick off loads of bucket list experiences, because there are so many, the world's biggest or largest or whatever it is in the world, things. I'm not even making any sense.
Okay, you've got one of the world's oldest rainforests here in the Daintree. Amazing, it is absolutely stunning. You've got world-class beaches. We don't need to, you've only got to look at Whitsundays. The diving out on the outer reef is exceptional. And you've got all these bucket list experiences. You can go diving with sharks, all sorts of things.
You can go snorkeling with dolphins and turtles. You've got the world's oldest subtropical rainforest in Gold Coast. Gold Coast, very underrated place, I think. Just to go off on that topic slightly. So where we live now, we live 2 hours from Gold Coast, and I always thought Gold Coast was like surfer's paradise, which is kind of looks like I don't know. People say it's a bit like Las Vegas in a weird way. I think just purely because the skyscrapers there, which you don't really see in coastal towns in Australia. And it was just really known more so for sort of those hen and stag pies and schoolies as well. Do you want to explain what schoolies is?
Okay, schoolies. And we'll have to talk about the related toolies. But anyway, schoolies. Schoolies is this affair, all the kids finish school, in New South Wales and Queensland, and it's a tradition, literally after school ends, to go up to Queensland, the Gold Coast in particular, and have a party for a week, maybe 2 weeks if you can last that long. But anyway, all the kids come up in droves, and they just literally just invade the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise in particular, and they'll just take over. They book out all the hotels. They just go crazy and throw shoes off balconies and just all sorts of crazy things you wouldn't imagine.
How old are they? Are they 16 or 18?
Well, if you're 17 and...
Oh, is it 17 when they finish school?
Or 18, yeah, around that sort of age. So everyone's 17, 18. They're all getting amongst it and that sort of thing, and packing out the clubs. There's also toolies. Now, toolies is something I ended up doing because I didn't get to go to schoolies. And these are finished a couple of years later and end up going. So
that sounds really wrong. You're
missed out. So
preying on all these younger...
No, you're a little bit old, a bit more debonair, you see. you're a bit more debonair, and I think
Do you-
all the young kids turn their nose up. What's this Tulio? What's he
What's
doing?
this
here?
old man?
What's this old guy
Did
doing?
you
I'm
make-
only like 3 years older than you.
Is this a term you've made up called
No,
Tulio?
it's definitely real. You can
It's
look it
actually
up.
a real thing.
100%. Yeah.
Wow, okay. But going back on the Gold Coast topic, so yeah, before I used to think Gold Coast was just, just full of skyscrapers and a bit soulless or whatever. But actually now we're only 2 hours down the road, I say, it's really amazing. They've got the largest part of the Gondwana forest, which is like 3 million years old, I think it is, and it is the oldest subtropical rainforest in the world. It all broke off into sections, all down from it. Like the largest part is in Gold Coast in Lamington National Park, and then it sprinkles all the way down to Barrington Tops, which is in New South Wales, which is about a 4-5 hour drive, I think, from Sydney, which is also very beautiful. But Lamington National Park, oh my God, it is unbelievable. You feel like you've gone back into like Jurassic Park era or something. It is like absolutely amazing. I definitely recommend to go there when you do visit Australia, if or if you're in the Gold Coast at any time. It is properly amazing.
We only talked about the East Coast. We haven't even talked about Uluru or Darwin or Western Australia. West Coast is amazing.
Very underrated.
Like Annie, you've got a better. I mean, I've only really been to Perth. Annie's done the West Coast, and you've got all these reefs. You've got is it Ningaloo Reef? Yeah, that's the one.
The irony, I've seen more of Australia than Steve.
Yeah,
but I think you've
go.
probably seen more of the UK than I have. Well, you've been to Scotland, haven't you?
I have. I do love Edinburgh. Teach that one.
Yeah, so when I was a backpacker in 2006, I travelled around majority of the country, and I did went up to WA as well. And the beaches in WA are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Like, by far the best beaches in Australia, I think, because they're all like white sand, turquoise water, they're pristine, really, really amazing. On the East Coast, you'll have some of the best beaches. Obviously, going to be in Whitsundays. Where else is there, Steve? Agnes Water, where we used to live.
Yeah, like you've got Cairns as well. Like there's a load of stuff around sort of Cairns Way that's amazing. I mean, you've got, the Barrier Reef.
Jarvis Bay as well.
Jarvis Bay,
down by Sydney. That's got the whitest sand in the world beach. And that is really beautiful. Last time we were down there, we were like, oh my God, this is like, why do you need to go to Maldives for? And you've got it right here,
And even further south, like you're sort of further down the south coast of New South Wales towards Eden, and that way it's super beautiful down there as well.
Bermagui and that.
Yeah, Bermagui, lovely. Yeah.
It's all beautiful. That's the thing. And you're just like, oh my God, where do we go today? Like,
I haven't even talked about like Victoria, like all the amazing places. You've got Wilson's Promontory down there.
Yeah, but you know what though, with Victoria, I have to put my hand up. We've not really done that much.
We need to do more. That's definitely on my list.
And when we have been to Melbourne, we've both been like, oh God, we should have moved here, because it's got that very sort of more of a European vibe to it, and it's a bit more like, it's quite hip and like a bit more, I don't know.
I think cafe culture is the word, and I think that
Cafe
segues
culture.
nicely into one of our points. Look, like Australia does something really, really well, and that's good coffee. I am a coffee connoisseur. Bad coffee disappoints me, upsets me, makes me feel grumpy. Now, I don't like that. I like good coffee. I like a bit of zing. And one of the things I often ask when I go to a cafe is, is this like a zingy coffee, or is this kind of, I need 10 of them just to like kind of wake up. So I like to know this. I'm a bit of a caffeine geek. So,
caffeine geek.
There you go.
Well, everyone does say that apparently Australia does the best coffee. Here's a little fact that you might not know about me. I have never, ever drank a cup of coffee in my life. Ever.
Oh, that's just
never did it.
blasphemy, that is.
My mother told me from a young age, she's like, never drink coffee. She said, and it just drilled into me, and I just never did it. So I've never drank coffee. And
Don't know what you're missing out
You're wondering
on.
what I'm drinking right now. If you're watching, I'm drinking a cup of cacao.
It's a cacao. Cacao. But I don't know, actually, let's just pull up on that as well very quickly, because if you have a combination of coffee and cacao, like in the morning, it's awesome, because you have your caffeine kind of bump early, and then you've got your cacao coming on, sort of, you've got you've got your cacao sort of, doing that extra sort of pick me up further along. So they're a great combination. I highly recommend them.
Yeah, it's good cacao. I don't know. I got onto it a while ago. It's a bit like hot chocolate. But yeah, anyway, we're digressing here.
We digress.
But going on to cafe culture as well, the one thing that does always baffle me is why there are always massive queues to get into a cafe for breakfast. Who wants to queue to get into a cafe?
People cannot wait to pay like $17 for like avo on toast.
Are you talking about? No, but come on, it's way more than that. If you're in Sydney now, I bet you'd be paying about $30 for
$30 for avo on toast.
Madness. But there's a reason why these cafes are like busy, because they're obviously very good.
They're making this special bread where they put like buckwheat from random kind of organic farm in far away Mozambique. Like it's sort of like they try to like puff it up a bit and charge their $30 for now it's $40. I don't know, crazy amounts of money for
what I feel like,
on toast.
Especially in Sydney, people have gone from queuing up to get to nightclubs to now they're like queuing up for cafes instead. It's like the whole reverse, because like that is a thing that I think we have talked about before, is like you want to try, when you live here, it's a weird thing where you want to, like I feel like I want to be actively pursuing to be more healthy. Another thing that I really love about Australia that I didn't know about until we moved over here, how everyone is very invested in the whole caravanning situation.
Oh, caravanning. Oh, yes. Now, very close to my heart. I think caravanning is awesome. You get back to nature. You've got the barbecues. It's a communal feeling. It's just this it's a very Australian thing. You've got your caravan, you've got a little slice of home you can take with you wherever you go. You just plonk up and you just have, this gorgeous vista, a nice beach. You can be as secluded as you want. You can be as kind of, packed in as you want. It's your choice. Totally up to you. Super versatile. And I'm not the only one. I think most of Australia just loves caravanning. It's a big thing here. Huge.
And also picnicking as well. I think I remember the first time we were on the beach, and I saw people, and they brought their own table, their own tablecloth, their own cutlery. It's like they brought their own their own dining table to the beach to have lunch. And I'd never seen that before. And I was like, what are people doing? Like, why have they not just gone to Tesco's and bought a crappy barbecue and put it on the beach?
When Australians when they do the outdoors, we do it well. Like there's no messing around.
So well.
Very well. We bring all the comforts. There's nothing left, to want. Like it's all there. You want to bring everything. You've got people will invest a lot of money to deck out their caravans and have all these little special compartments that fly out, and you do your barbecue over here and your shower over there and your kind of fridge over here and your oven over there. It's like everything like you can think of that you have in a house is with you in the caravan. So you're completely self-sufficient. You can put solar panels on it, radio, have television, everything you think of.
They do, and it is so amazing to see.
So when I think of a caravan park in England, it makes me think of an episode. I don't know if you know this, but it's like an episode of The In-Betweeners. And there's an episode where they're in this caravan park and all this stuff happens, and they've got this really dreary dance situation. Go and check out The In-Betweeners.
Okay.
Episode. It's really, really funny, and that kind of made me think of it. It's just kind of like a holiday that's not really a holiday. It's like Dad wants it to happen, but it just doesn't really ever take off. It's just super dreary and raining, and everyone's just staring at each other really blankly, and there's nothing to do except sit in your caravan. And that's completely opposite to what it is in Australia, where you've got the outdoors and everything's just beautiful and awesome.
And the campsites are always in really amazing places over here, aren't they? You find some that are right on beautiful secluded beaches. If I could just name a couple that you should totally go and check out. First one comes to mind, Southwest Rocks.
Oh yeah,
that's how far
Trial
is that?
Bay Jail is a good one as well.
That's in Southwest Rocks.
Oh, is that Southwest Rocks?
Yeah.
Trial Bay Jail, is that next door to it, is it?
Yeah, that's
I did not know that. Well, there you go.
That's an amazing one. Agnes Water, where we used to live, they've got some amazing campsites there as well.
Oh yeah.
They're all incredible though, aren't they?
Even down the road here where we live, just near Mooloolaba, there's you can pretty much camp on the beach, or you pull up your caravan and away you go, and you're right there.
That's why a lot of Australians do it, because it's way cheaper, isn't it, than staying in a hotel. And you can just imagine the better quality time you're going to have with your family, camping, than you would do being in a hotel. I can totally understand why people invest in the whole camping thing over here, because it is so cool. And that's why, like we said before, how a lot of people at Christmas, they'll just escape the cities and they just go up the coast or down the coast and go camping for
Yeah.
like the Christmas holidays.
You have to book ahead, like it's super busy, and people will like reserve the same spot for like 20 years.
They do, don't they?
You have to be like, they'll have their spot and they go, oh, Dora and I've been here for 40 years since we were married. Like you'll have that sort of thing going on, like they're very specific, got to be that one spot that's Doreen's always liked for the past 20 years. So.
That's so true, though.
Oh, yeah.
But also, if you didn't know, if you go on the National Parks website, whichever state you're in, there are free campgrounds as well that you can pre-book, but you just have to book them well in advance as well. And actually, I think on the national park sites, especially the ones in Jarvis Bay, I think, they're like a ballot as well. So you have to it's literally like a lucky dip really on who's going to get those.
Wilson's
spaces.
Promontory is the same as well. Like you need to.
In Victoria.
In Victoria, yeah. But we'll leave a link in the show notes for an app as well. It's super handy. I can't remember the name of it right now. I think it's Campsites Australia or something like that. I'll leave a link in the show notes, but super useful app. You can just dial up like camp spots around Australia. So super handy when you're trying to sort of travel around and find the nearest available camp spot.
You know what else is really cool about the whole holidaying thing is, even though being an expat you feel like you're super far away from the rest of the world, in actual fact we're way closer to some really cool Asian countries as well. So like I remember when I worked back in London in 2018 and someone had gone to Bali on holiday and everyone was like, oh my God, Bali, it's so exotic. Whereas although I've not been to Bali yet, like I don't view it as somewhere that's exotic because you're like, that's where all the Australians go on holidays. It's like all the Brits going to Spain, for example, and whereas you wouldn't necessarily, if you're in England, you wouldn't say, oh, you're going to Spain, that's really exotic, would you? But it makes you realise actually we're not hugely far away from lots of countries like Japan and Thailand and Indonesia and lots of all the islands in the Pacific Ocean as well, which are super cool to go.
Southeast Asia is like right on the doorstep. And as you say, like the Pacific Islands are right there as well. Japan, Indonesia is massive. There's loads to explore, thousands of islands.
And you can get some super cheap flights like pre-COVID. I remember they were doing like return flights to Hawaii for like $300 or something, which is mad. But I mean, obviously that ain't going to happen right now because flights are crazy expensive at the moment to fly anywhere. We were looking to go back to UK at Christmas, which I really, really wanted to do because I've not been back for 3 years. And last time we were there, we was like, right, we're going to come back every year for Christmas because, as I've said before, Christmas in Australia, it's not great for me anyway. And so I was like, right, we're going this Christmas. And then we've just looked at flights and they're like, how much do they see? Like £5 or something.
I've got a bit of a philosophy or a kind of a way I kind of find cheaper flights, and it's all about looking for hubs. And if you know the hubs, you can kind of pick which way to go and how to get it cheaper. So, messages. So I can probably maybe shave a little bit of cash off your fare if you're interested. So
Steve's a genius at finding flights. He's like, I've got it. Like when we went to Italy and Greece in when did we go? In April, May, and we booked it kind of last minute, and we got the flights for like $1,000 return, which was really good. And I'm so glad we did that, even though we did it like with an airline that's probably not as desirable as other airlines.
I liked it. I think Scoot is the name of the airline, by the way, and they are amazing. They're actually really good. I thought they were great. I honestly thought they were great.
I would totally go with them again. Well, you and I, we're not really fussed, are we? We're like, I'll just do it because it's only like a day.
You could put me in the baggage hold and I'd be just fine. As long as you've got some air conditioning, that's fine. So, like I'd honestly do that if I was going to save money. It doesn't fuss me. And I think like one of the things now is like for me when I used to travel a bit more is that changing continents would be like $750 and like you could get all sorts of fares for that price, but it's not the same thing now. It's all changed. COVID changed all that.
Well, but even since April, May when we got those cheap flights, there's no way you're getting that now. Like the airlines have all just gone bananas and it's just so crazy expensive. And I have heard lots of expats have got in touch with me to say that, they don't know what they're going to do for Christmas now because they were going to go back to the UK just like I was, or like we were. And then now we're like, do I really want to be spending we'd be spending like 10 grand like between us just to get back there before we've even, actually experienced that trip. So, yeah, it's quite interesting when you start to go, right, well, what else can you do in your Christmas holidays when you don't want to stay at home? But luckily enough, there are some amazing places you can go and visit. And recently we watched this new movie called Ticket to Paradise, which is with George Clooney and Julia Roberts. That's where they're meant to be in Bali, watching their daughter get married to a Balinese dude. But it was actually filmed in most of it was filmed in the Whitsundays, which really made us sit back and go, wow, why do we not go up there more often? Because this is like super beautiful and we don't need to go and travel outside of Australia to land in paradise in a sense.
Yeah, like totally true. And I think some of it was filmed on Tangalooma Island, which is just off the coast of Brisbane as well. As a few shots from there, you'll notice.
Yeah.
And yeah, all up and down the coast of Australia, some beautiful stuff. So if you can't get out of Australia, like if it's just too crazy expensive to get out, which by the way, I found because I tried to get flights to Singapore and it was crazy expensive.
Yeah, just getting out of Australia was the hard part.
Just getting out was the hard part. And like if once you got to Singapore, wherever else you wanted to go was fine. So, the thought would be, well, look around because there's loads of cool stuff here to see. As Annie was saying, like, all up and down the East Coast is amazing. And, you can probably even drive there if you're willing to do a bit of a longer drive as well.
It's cool to drive. We've driven up and down the coast quite a few times, haven't we? And there's some great little hidden gems to visit as well.
Cardwell and like...
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? Actually, going into that, once you get from sort of Townsville area up to Cairns, oh my God.
Yeah.
The wild swimming spots and waterfalls up there are mind-blowing. Like you feel like you're in like a Disney movie. It's like insane. Like the pools are crystal clear, like turquoise. You can see to the bottom. You're surrounded by this rainforest. Like it is absolutely amazing up there. And I think that sort of tropical North Queensland, totally underrated to what you would ever imagine. So just going off on that, I remember the first time we went up there together and we stayed in Port Douglas and we went there for 5 days and it was in July because if you go to tropical North Queensland, the sort of season to go usually is between July and September. So that's like dry season. And then if you go up at Christmas, then it's a wet season, but we've done both, right? So when we went up in July, it rained like 5 days and we stayed in Port Douglas and we didn't really do anything, did we? Because we were like, it's raining. So we just sat in the hotel room. And that was really before we were like, got properly invested in like exploring and stuff together. And
there's some interesting characters in that hotel. I'll just have to jump in there. There was.
What do you mean?
No, actually I'm thinking, not in Port Douglas. Actually, I'm thinking of the interesting characters we had in Palm Cove when we were there.
What do you mean?
Yeah, we stayed in Palm Cove. We had some interesting characters. Remember we went to the acai place, yeah.
Oh,
there's like a family of like people with dogs and stuff. Anyway.
What? You're making no sense.
I am not. I'm making perfect sense. Moving along anyway.
But so yeah, and then the second time we went up in Christmas 2020. We were meant to do a big long trip around New South Wales and Victoria. We had it all planned out, couldn't wait. And then someone got COVID in the Northern Beaches in Sydney. And back then it was like one person gets COVID, the whole state goes into lockdown. And so, which is kind of mad now when you think about that. But, that at the time there was like 10 people then got it. And so they were like, right, we're closing the borders. And because we were living in Queensland at the time, we literally had to drop everything. And it was really sad because it was the day before your birthday. And I remember us having to say goodbye to your mum and your auntie, like, from across the lawn. And we're like, bye.
That was terrible. I was like, hi, I'm sorry, I've come all this way, but I can't, I can't even like give you a hug or anything because it's Christmas time.
So heartbreaking.
I had to like package up like keys and stuff into a bag so I didn't physically touch them and all these sort of things. And it was really hard.
And then we had to literally like get back over the border, and we had like 10 hours or something to get back over the border, which we did it. But when we got back into Queensland, we had all this holiday time and we were like, well, what do we do with it? And so straight away I was like, we're going out to Cairns, let's just do it. We're just going to do a road trip. And so we did. And I'm so glad we did it because it was amazing. And even though most of the time it did actually rain when we were up there, it didn't spoil it. It actually made it even better because when you go into a rainforest when it's raining, it instantly all comes alive and it's just magical. Like it's so beautiful. So don't be put off by seeing rain obviously in Australia because you can still get out and see lots. But we went and found like all these like wild swimming holes and like, oh my God, some of them were just insane. Do you remember that one near Mission Beach? And we went, like, I randomly found it, like, hidden on the internet. And I was like, right, Steve, we're going to go and find this little swimming hole. And it's near Mission Beach, which is like an hour from Cairns. And we were driving down this road, and it was like a residential road. And Steve was like, we're not going the right way. And I was like, well, apparently we are. So at the very end of this road, we came to this car park. And then we were like, oh, maybe this is it. And then we got out of the car, and there was no one else there. And we walked down a little bit, and then it just opened up into this absolutely pristine and amazing swimming hole. And we were like, oh my God, like, this is unbelievable. Like, how have we found
super
this?
beautiful, like the crystal clear waters, and you know, you're kind of just like thinking, wow, I can't wait to get in there and have a nice swim and get amongst that nice flowing water.
It was insane.
Super lush.
The light was just beaming down onto it, and there was not one other person there. And it's called Alligator's Nest. I'm going to reveal it.
Oh, that one. I thought you meant a different one. That's even better, actually. The one she's
Which one are you thinking
talking
of?
About's like even way better. I thought it was a different one that I thought was kind of a bit ho-hum.
No way.
The one that he's actually talking about, because when she said residential area,
It was a residential
yeah, no, when you talk
area.
about it's amazing. Alligator's Nest, yeah, that's epic. If you just said Alligator's Nest, you would have had me there.
Oh, well, it is. It's
Yeah.
proper amazing.
There's no alligators there, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just called that because, you know, someone named it.
And
so.
I think that's the kind of confusing thing about tropical North Queensland, because there are obviously like crocodiles up there and everything. So you're like, oh, can you swim? Can you not? Like, who knows what you can do? But the swimming holes should be fine. But obviously on the beaches, especially around Port Douglas and the Daintree and Cape Tribulation, oh, no. I know that for sure.
Yeah, stay in the nets. Like, there's some nets there anyway. Like, they'll, you know, once you get past kind of Townsville area, I think they just do nets and stuff. So, yeah, you can just swim in those.
But there are some proper, like, underrated places, I think, around Australia, especially like Rockhampton as well. Rockhampton, that is a proper gem around there. Like, a lot of people probably wouldn't stop, but there are some really beautiful places around there.
There's also the Rocky Muster as well.
The what?
The Rockhampton do like them. Actually, that's another point, actually. Not necessarily Rockhampton, but throughout Australia, there's like musters, and there's stuff where they have like a B&S ball. That's something completely unique to Australia. Hey?
What's that?
It's a bachelor and spinster's ball, Annie. Like, that's what they do. Like, you know, you get there and you kind of guys and gals. B&S ball. Did you not know about
I
this?
didn't know what that was.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a huge thing. Like, it's like a rodeo, like, but kind of not. So it's like, you know, you have bachelors and spinsters. They come together. It's like traditional country town thing. You know, it's in Australia. Well, yeah, true story. It's like, look, I'd have to. I'm not going to pretend that I know the true origin of this.
So in England, you have like young farmers.
Yeah,
like young farmers do. Is it like that?
They're just basically the oldies are trying to like marry off the kids. So they're like, go along to this kind of B&S ball. Maybe you'll meet a bloke. Maybe you'll meet a girl, and you know, you live happily ever after type thing. And they used to kind of set them up. Look, you know, as again, I'm not going to pretend I know the history, but you know, there's definitely a unique thing. So if there's a B&S ball or a spinster's ball or a radio or anything like that, and you spot it as you're traveling around Australia, jump on in there. Don't waste the opportunity because it is unique. And it is something that is definitely Australian. You will definitely know you're in Australia there.
We had a look at a rodeo in Rockhampton, didn't we? But it wasn't on at the time. But I was like, wow, this is amazing. I feel like we were like in like Texas or something.
That's what I was looking for, was a rodeo originally.
Yeah.
When you looked at me like, what are you talking about? But anyway, so yeah, like rodeo, B&S ball, they're all fun. So get along to them. They're super good and very Aussie. If you want to have that really unique Aussie experience, you can't beat them.
There you go. Yeah, I think that's a thing as well, actually, just talking about the rodeo stuff, because I remember being out in the outback when I drove from Darwin down to Alice Springs and Uluru and seeing people like almost dressed as cowboys. And I was like, what? Like, why are they dressed like cowboys? I just didn't even realise it was a thing over here.
Yeah.
But we are probably digressing here off our topic.
So what have we got next? I think, you know what? I just totally digressing completely off that topic is customer service. How good. That's a great segue. Didn't you love that segue? So, no, well, you know, like honestly, okay, all I can say is that, you know, the experiences I've had with customer service in England just haven't been the best. I had to call immigration and honestly, like, this is when I was applying for my visa, and it honestly, they felt like I was wasting their time. And I was just asking regular questions.
Hang on a minute. Isn't that the norm for all like governments?
Any type, like I think I was calling the bank as well. Like I called the bank a few times. I've called like, telecoms. Don't get me started on telecoms. Like,
oh my God,
anyone to do with like a phone thing, it just does not want to know who you are. So you'll call up and you'll be, like, oh yeah, I've got a problem with this. And they're like, oh, sorry to hear that. I'm like, yeah, like that's really, can you help me? Yeah, probably not. And I'm like, oh, please, can you like just put a teeny bit of effort in there,
I remember in England, we would go to the shop and we'd be like, oh, we tell me this is that. Yeah, we don't tell it. You should go to this place instead. And we're like, should you be telling us that?
Oh, yeah, they're very forthcoming about where to go and get stuff.
It's so funny, wasn't it?
But no, I just have to say, like, customer service in Australia is very, very good. I think, comparatively to England.
I think it may be a little bit too much though. Like, so yeah, no. It is a little bit. Like yesterday I went to some shops and I was trying some clothes. I really don't like it when they're a bit over. I just want to have my own space and get my stuff, try it on. You walk in, they're like, hey, how you going? And you're like, yeah, all right. Like,
leave me alone. I'm just trying to look around.
But you're like, you don't really want to know how I am. But yeah, okay. Because when I first moved here, I'd be like, yeah, how are you? And they'd look at me like, what? You're actually asking me a question? But then like, you're like, okay, I'm just going to be like, all right. And then they come back to you. Is there anything I can help you with? You're like, no.
But they might not ask you once. They might come back a few, or different shop assistants will do that.
But then you're like, okay, I've got the stuff I want to try on. You get into the changing room. Literally 30 seconds later, they're like, oh, how's it looking? And you're like, oh my God. Like, and then in my head, I'm just thinking, I just want to get out of here because I feel really pressured now, but it's not a fun experience.
That's two different things. And I think you're very much confusing the I don't care with the like, can I help you 50,000 times. There's two very different like approaches here. I think personally, I would much rather have the kind of person that kind of leaves you alone and then just they just like you kind of look at them and they kind of come over and go, oh yes, can I help you? That sort of thing's fine, and that's how it works in a shop. But when you're calling up on the phone and there's no kind of opportunity for someone to go, can I help you? Because like we're already in a conversation. So when you're on the phone, I think people in Australia definitely care a little bit more than people in England. They're just going, oh yeah, no, I don't know about that. And it was like, oh, like, can you put me into someone who does? No,
it's like kind of like I don't know. It goes both ways. I have had some over here be similar, and
I feel like just saying, "Can I speak to your manager?" Like, are you even fussed about that? And they're like, "No, it's not here right now." It's like, oh, come on, like at least get a little bit worried or scared that I'm going to speak to your boss and catch you out doing nothing. Like, but no, they're not fussed. They're not fussed at all.
You know what else I really like about over here? Is that public transport is so cheap here as well. Because,
true.
You can go from Sydney to Newcastle. It's 2.5, maybe 3 hour train ride on the weekend. And it's pretty much free. Like, you don't even have to pay for it.
It's not free.
It is. I think it's free, isn't it? Or it's like $2.
As if you've got like a weekly Opal thing.
Yeah, it's like $2 or something, which is crazy because you do that in the UK and you're paying like £75, if not more, for that sort of
We can thank
journey.
Maggie Thatcher's
Isn't that crazy?
Responsible for that story, isn't it?
And as I said before, like, when I was commuting to London, I was paying like, it was over £500 a month for that ticket. So that's over $1,000 a month to sit on the floor on the train to go to work.
And we've spoken in previous episodes, well, I have anyway, about the situation with the leaves on the track. And I just think the driver not turning up because he's in the pub, all that sort of stuff. Like, the transport thing in Australia is way better. I think, there's not, as Annie said, you're not paying like, £300 just to go down the, literally 100 kilometres.
Well, I wouldn't say it's better because there's way more options to get to places, I think, in the UK.
True.
Like here, like, you can't even get to Bondi Beach on the train here from Sydney, which is mad.
Well, you can go to, you can go to Bondi Junction and get a bus.
Yeah, but Bondi Beach is probably like the most famous place in the whole country, and you can't even get to train down to it.
Yeah,
which
but
is kind
who
of mad.
wants a station like on the beach? Like, why would you do that?
All right. Well, anyways, I'm just saying that there's more options for public transport. Like even up here in Sunny Coast, if you flew into Sunny Coast Airport, you'd have to get a taxi or hire a car to get to Noosa really from the airport, and that's probably about a 40-minute drive. So
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Look, it is very much more oriented around cars, and that is a there could be more public transport. Point taken, point taken. But I think in general, like the price that you're paying for it is certainly much better. And I think, you're not sitting on the floor and as the driver turns up and there's no leaves on the track. So for me, it's a winner. I really can't argue.
There you go. Let's talk about one of your favourite topics in the whole world, Steve, which is that someone was saying to me recently they went back to England and I asked them about this topic and they said they didn't see any, which is breweries and craft beer.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for letting me chime in on this one, Annie. I thought you were going to introduce it all. But anyway, one of my favourite things about Australia is craft beer. Okay, I'm a bit of a craft beer nerd. I love my hops, I love my malt, and I love all the jazz around that and, different combinations and people like doing weird things with it. I love all that stuff. I love going to a brewery, and we have some awesome, spectacular breweries up here in Sunny Coast. There's all over the country. There's awesome breweries. Loads in Melbourne.
Everywhere. Sydney
awesome ones in Melbourne. Heaps of good ones in Sydney.
Brisbane. They're everywhere.
Yeah, and you have these really amazing, and they're like a family thing. Like it's not just blokes turning up and getting nerdy over beer. There's like everyone's welcome, and they have like food trucks and everything. And
they're like some of them are like a little festival in a sense, aren't they? Like
totally.
Like a little family thing where there's one up here in Sunny Coast called Torella, and it's they've got like little farm animals there. They've got the food trucks. It's like a little day out.
Well, that brewery in particular, he does a full eco thing where he recycles the beer water and like feeds the plants and that's what the
feeds
carbon
all the animals as well with it.
The carbon dioxide coming off of the brew goes in to feed the plants, and he does all really cool stuff with it. Torella Brewery, if you want to check it out.
That's very cool, that place.
Yeah, but there's loads of people doing all sorts of stuff like that, and I think I didn't notice so much of that in England. In fact, all I knew was like, you got Heineken imported from, Amsterdam and
Foster's.
no one drinks. I'm glad we brought Foster's up because, cat urine's just not the sort of thing I'm really that interested in. So, that's the second episode we mentioned Foster's.
What about Stella? Do you like Stella?
Well, AKA a wife beater.
A wife beater.
Yeah, no, that's not a good look. But, I've had some nights in the Stella. Haven't beaten any women yet. So
what would be what would be your choice of drink in England?
I'd probably, okay. Huh.
Oh my gosh. I thought you would know.
That's a good question.
I thought you'd be like, bam.
What would I normally drink? No, it was, what would I normally drink in England? I think I actually drink Foster's in the end.
What? Are you joking?
Boom. No, I honestly think I actually drank Foster's.
You didn't.
But it doesn't taste the same.
Oh my God, you've been harping on about how
it doesn't taste the same. It doesn't taste the same as what it does. No, it doesn't taste the same. Because in Australia it's really bad. No, can we just edit all this out, please? This is terrible. This is really bad.
Oh my God, this is so going onto our social media.
No, I didn't drink Foster's that much. I just had it like rarely. But I can't for life remember. I do know the Red Stripe was like probably like the Jamaican beer. Yeah, that was pretty good.
What about a Corona?
And the Polish one. Oh, Corona's no way. I wouldn't feed that to the dog. Corona's terrible. It's really like this kind of hyped up brand thing.
What about Sol? Is Sol the same as Corona?
Oh, Sol's all right. It's not. Yeah, they're all that like you need to like. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that Mexican beer thing.
Next time we go back, we'll have to do a little thing where we can find out what is your favourite beer in the UK.
Pale ales, that's where it's at for me. It's all about pale ales and hops and lots of them. So, if you can find something super hoppy, I'm there with bells on. So, I mean, there's just such a wide, vast array of really good craft beer here.
And just on that topic, this is a question I probably should have asked you a very long time ago, and that's just popped into my head now. Is there a difference between lager and beer? Is it the same thing or not?
What? Of course.
It is the same thing.
Well, it's like saying, what's the difference between Jupiter and air? Like they're two different things, like completely different things.
They are the different things.
Well, no, lager is a type of beer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I've worked in pubs before, when people would say beer, I think they'd mean like real ale.
Oh.
That's why I ask you.
Well, no, because lager is usually like cold and bubbly and stuff. So, I mean, you have your traditional ales, which are like warm and gross and shouldn't be drunk at all.
Like Guinness sort of thing.
Well, no, Guinness is cold. So,
oh, right. don't know.
Did you work in a pub?
Yeah, I have worked in loads of pubs in England.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. And Australia.
Feel sorry for anyone who drank there. Sorry.
No, I was pretty bad at it. People used to, when it used to get busy, people would be like, "You serving?" I'm like, "No, I'm like,
Not
I'm
serving.
sorting out the dishwasher."
I'm sorting out the dish. Was that your line to like, why didn't someone else serve
And then
them?
when we used to do cocktails, we used to do like cocktails on a Monday night, and it would be like
Oh,
2
I've
for
heard
one.
this story. Yeah, how does this go? Tell me this
There
one.
used to be 2 for 1 cocktails, and people would come in and be like, "You doing cocktails now?" I'd be like, "No." It's just because I didn't know how to make them. And then when I worked at the bar in Thailand, and it was like we were supposed to like remember how to make all the cocktails, but I used to just make it up, and people would be like, they'd order a cocktail and they'd have it again, and they'd be like, "Oh, that tastes different." I'm like, "Oh, did it?"
Completely different shots in there. So you didn't put the same thing in. Like, so they got a lucky dip every single time.
Yeah, just changed
Oh,
it.
that's so good. What you should have named it your own drink, Annie's Lucky Dip. I would have totally capitalised on that. That would have been my thing. I would put a sign up saying Annie's Lucky Dip over here. Because that's totally cool. I would have done that so well. That's an awesome idea.
Oh, God.
Especially in Thailand, no one's caring anyway.
Well, that's what I thought. Everyone was
Making
so
out with lady boys at 3
Oh my
a.m.
God. The amount of times
story.
you'd see that. Wow. Gosh, I remember this one.
Oh, got to tell that story.
Oh, I think he must have been about 24 maybe. And he came in with his mates. He was so excited. Like, you could see it was first time in Thailand. And they were drinking buckets early. And in Thailand, if someone starts drinking buckets early, it's going to end
that's a bad
really
sign,
bad.
yeah.
And it must have been about 8 o'clock and they were on the bucket. And I was like, oh. And later on, he's back in the bar. And he's
What time's later on?
Don't know. He was wasted, probably about 1 o'clock. Oh. And anyway, there were some lady boys that was being in the bar all the time, which, there's nothing wrong with that. And one of the lady boys starts chatting him up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, all good and everything." But I don't think he realizes it's a lady boy. And then later on, it must have been about 5, 6 a.m. in the morning as we're like about to close. And he comes back and oh God, he looks so horrified.
Did he disappear with the lady boy for a bit?
He was about to pass. Yeah, he was about to pass out. He was absolutely wasted. I felt really bad for him.
Oh no.
Maybe he woke up and didn't remember. I don't know. But yeah.
Oh dear.
But you
scrub that one out
see
to
everything
memory.
in Thailand, that's for
geez.
sure.
But in case you're wondering what a lady boy is, if you haven't been to Thailand, first of all, go to Thailand because it's amazing. We both love it. We actually, we've got a lot to say about Thailand, but we'll leave that for an episode.
We actually properly got together in Thailand, didn't
we? We did.
How on earth did we get on to talking about ladyboys in Thailand when we're talking about things we love about Australia?
We were supposed to be talking about meat raffles.
Oh my God.
Love meat raffles, yes.
So you did mention that at the beginning of this episode. So I remember the first time I came to Australia with you and we were sat in your local pub, and then, they get onto the little loudspeaker, don't they, in these pubs, and they go, "All right, everybody, meat raffle's about to start." And I was like, "What?"
Annie looked at me with this puzzled look, like she had no idea what a meat raffle was.
So what are you on about? And then they'd bring it around. They'd bring round this tray full of meat. Oh, look,
like a
everybody!
lot of meat, if you've seen
Look,
that
everybody!
tray.
This is what you're going to win tonight. And I was just like, I was just like, it's a joke. I don't what I don't understand what's going on. It's like someone's gone to the frozen section of Coles or something and picked up loads of frozen meat and gone, "Here you go."
Oh, you saw a bad meat tray. So your first meat tray experience wasn't super high quality.
No. Well, I don't know. I just remember it being really.
You were scarred.
I just thought it was really weird. I was like, we're in a pub and yet they're bringing around a tray of meat that you can win. That's kind of odd. But hey ho, that's the thing over here that they do meat raffles. I can't say it's something I particularly love about living here, but it's something very random about.
Definitely, I didn't spot any meat raffles in the UK. That definitely wasn't something that was done in a pub.
It's not a thing.
But I mean, come to think of it, there's no reason why you wouldn't. You could get your Tesco's barbecue and just pop down and throw on a couple pork sausages or something. It's possible. It's doable. No one's brought. Maybe that's an idea. Maybe that's a new thing for England.
You know what I do love about Australia? One thing I got very excited about, the first time I went to this place, I'm going to talk about everyone. It is
what?
Show bags. That they
Oh,
used to
show bags! Woo!
Show bags, everybody. Oh my God. If you don't know what show bags are,
love show bags.
Best thing in the whole world. So they have the Easter show in Sydney, obviously at Easter time, where they do a load of range of stuff there. So there's fairground rides. They have wood chopping championships, kind of random. But they also, the main reason why everyone goes to it is for the show bags. And we went We didn't even have kids, but we were like, which one are we going to get? And we'd walk around and suss out who's got the best show bag. And it's basically like a bag full of loads of toys or random stuff.
Okay, now let me just give you the Australian perspective here and a bit of background story on this whole thing. All right, so the whole thing, the Easter show started like as a farmers' meet where all the farmers would come into the city with their produce and they'd kind of, show it off to all the city folk and they'd sort of, oh, look at this big pumpkin you've grown, Roger. That's amazing. That's kind of how it started. And they'd have these competitions to see who had the biggest, watermelon or something. That was honestly how it all kicked off, right? Farmers revving each other up to see who grew the biggest thing. Anyway, that kind of moved on, and they brought cattle along, and who's got the biggest, looking, bull or whatever. Anyway, so that went on for a bit, and then it kind of got, a bit more cityfied after a while. And in the end, you had this kind of situation where they brought rides in, and it got all kind of, fairy floss and hot dogs and battered salves. If you don't know what a battered salve is, we'll get into that in a minute.
What is that? Okay, you can't. Just tell me now.
We'll digress into battered save land in just a moment. So anyway, along come show bags, and show bags revolutionised everything because show bags started off originally as a sample of the goodies that all the farmers would have. Anyway, so these samples would be like, here's like a few tomatoes and, maybe here's like a little slice of the massive ginormous pumpkin that Roger grew. And you'd have all that stuff in a bag. And then it was all of a sudden like, okay, let's jazz these bags up a bit and started putting chocolates in them and all this sort of stuff. And they kind of won out at the end of the day. So all of a sudden you've got chocolate bags everywhere. And all of a sudden the chocolate bags got to gag bags. Don't ask me how that transitioned, but there was a gag bag transition that was huge. Gag bag.
Are you joking?
Oh, seriously, it was awesome. So what you do is like I had all these little things called gag bags, and they were like, I remember this as a kid, I used to love them. So they had like, whoopee cushions?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had whoopee cushions and the Wrigley's chewing gum where you'd kind of like, oh, would you like to have a chewing gum? And the thing would like snap and grab your finger.
I thought you were
stuff.
talking about gag, like as in like some sort of like
like a spear bag.
No, I thought it was like BDSM sort of thing. I was like,
on,
what? What are you on
what
about?
What at the Easter show?
Yeah, that's what I was like, what are you on about?
Oh, I don't know where a BDSM like thing got in the Easter show like that. That's not something I would have put in the same sentence.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
I'm almost going to transition to battered salves from there, but I feel like it's kind of maybe not the best. We'll leave the battered salves for a minute. Moving along with the show bag stuff. Anyway, so you'd sit at home and you'd look at all your the potential bag that you could choose, and everyone was saying, right, well, I'm going to get the Cadbury bag, get the crazy Joe gag bag, and then you had like all these other ones, secret spy agents. They had ones where you have like little toy like weapons and stuff, which now these days seems like totally un-PC. And they had all that sort of stuff like swords, like plastic swords. I would not give my kids a plastic sword bag. Like, no. It was like, He-Man bag and everything. That was huge, He-Man bag. And you'd see kids like, bashing each other over the head with these plastic swords.
So basically,
the image of that in my head's just ingrained as a child. I'm like, why anyone thought that was a good idea? Like, let's give kids like a bunch of plastic axes they can smash each other in the head with them. Like, that just seems nuts. Anyway, let me just finish this. Anyway, so kids were getting all these bags, they're getting nuts with them, and and that's how the whole show bag thing came about. So, and then, look, it was a huge thing as a child, and it's something I'll always remember as kind of an awesome time. But the history of the battered sav. Now a savloy is a sausage, and that gets dipped in batter and then deep fried. That's a battered sav.
Yeah. I see. That doesn't go in the show bag then. That's a whole separate
Doesn't
thing.
go in a show bag.
Right, okay.
I just want to move on to that because you're curious, And then hang on. Then after that, it's called a Dagwood dog. Is when you dip it in like tomato sauce at the end.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah,
Dagwood dog.
Oh
That's very awesome.
Shall I talk about what else I love about Australia? I forgot all about this.
What?
Oh my god! When you go to cinema,
What?
choc tops.
Choc tops? They don't have choc tops in England.
No,
Really?
choc tops best thing.
Of course they have choc
They
tops
don't
in
do
England.
choc tops in England.
Oh, rubbish. They do.
don't.
Of course they do.
Do they?
Yes.
No, they don't.
They do, Annie.
They don't. It's
They
not
do.
a thing. It's not a thing.
Oh, we're going to have people writing in about this.
Well, I think the listeners should tell us whether it's a thing.
Do
or
you
not.
think there's choc tops in England at the movie theatres? I
There's
do.
not. It's not. Anyways, if you don't know what a choc top is, it's like a pre-packaged ice cream. But is it pre-packaged?
No, well, they usually make it like authentically. They'd make it in-house and they'd buy their ice cream and cones and like dip it in there and stuff.
They dip it into chocolate and then the chocolate hardens over the top.
Yeah.
And that's like a very standard Australian cinema experience.
Oh,
that
totally.
You have to get involved in.
But you're either chocked up within like minutes of being in the theatre. So I don't, it's like kind of one of those things that everyone's like, oh, I'm going to get my choc. I'm going to save it halfway. It's like no one's ever going to get like a choc top and eat it in the middle of the movie.
Who said that?
Well, I don't know, but sometimes you might have that vision. Like you're going to have the inner strength to maintain till the middle of the, but of course it would melt by then. So it's no
You
good.
know what else I love about Australia?
What's that?
Bunnings, Steve.
Bunnings! Sausages, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Sausage sizzle.
Extremely Aussie thing. I don't think there's anything like, I mean, I can't think of a hardware store in England that would have like sausages.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing, but hey ho.
But I don't remember that as a child. It's a new thing. It's like, it's not kind of, it's not.
That was always like a
no.
tradition.
No.
No way.
Oh no, it's
Never
a newer
knew
thing.
that.
Yeah, it's like probably last 10 years, probably.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sausage sizzle. So basically, it's just like sausage and a piece of like bread with some ketchup.
Yeah, well, all the charity guys, the Lions Club, they all do it. And they'll get down there and sometimes you get the old kid who's been a bit naughty and he gets a bit of to do his spare time. I have to do a bit of community service at the Lions Club, so he's like looking all grumpy because
But it's really nice when you see those sort of like volunteering initiatives. I think it was really lovely to sort of see that sense of community as well. And then just going on from shops as well, I've got to mention one other. We can't have a thing about what we love about Australia without mentioning the shop, everybody. And I'm sure the people who live in Australia will know what I'm talking about right now.
Can we have a little drum roll for this?
Go on, Steve, do it.
Okay, there's a
Kmart, everybody.
Kmart. No, that's ridiculous.
Kmart.
Are you serious?
Shop
A
of
drum
shops,
roll
everybody.
for Kmart?
Shop of shops.
Oh my God. I
It
can't believe I
is.
just did that.
Kmart is, when we moved back to England.
See, I think sorry, I know you're not going to like me for pulling you up here, but look, it's definitely aimed at women here. I'm sorry, but as a guy, Kmart, no, not my thing.
All right. So when we moved back to England in 2018, that was the one shop that I kept thinking of all the time. And I was like, we need to go and buy this. Or we need to go to Kmart. And I was like, oh, no, it's not here. Where do I go instead to buy this from? Because, you got Primark in England, which is fantastic in a sense, but they don't do the same stuff. So it's not like, whereas in Kmart, you've got a bit of clothes, but then you've got loads of homewares, there's sportswear, like makeup. It's just lots of random stuff all together in one place. And it's like super cheap. And, none of it lasts very long. It obviously all falls apart within like, I don't know, one wear or one use or whatever.
It dissolves when you put it into the wash. Like it dissolves into something. Like all the stitches just fall out.
But it's like a necessary shop in a way to have.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like I rent things when I buy them from Kmart. Like
it is a bit like that, isn't it?
I feel like I rent. Like if I bought a shirt, I'd rent the use of that shirt for a period of time. Probably only
not exactly very sustainable. Let's face it.
It's far from sustainable, and probably not something that's helping the planet in the
which we
slightest.
don't buy clothes from there anymore.
No,
but it's a great place to go if you want to buy like a birthday card or something. Because I just want to say, I find buying cards in Australia is really hard to find good cards. I don't know why, but like in the UK, there's always like loads of card shops everywhere. And over here, it's really, I don't know why, but I find it really difficult to find cards.
You've got WH Smith. So that's like, they're everywhere.
In the UK. Yeah. Not here, though.
No.
The only time you see WH Smith here is at the airport. I get so excited. Oh my God, you get Sydney Airport, you see WH, and you're like, oh, it's like a
You're like a
home.
celebrity, Annie.
Right
yes,
there.
we know. And Annie does mention that all the time.
What, when we see WH Smith?
Well, just any English shop, really.
It's just exciting, isn't it? Very exciting. And then lastly, I just want to mention one other shop as well, which is Aldi as well in Australia. Aldi's actually pretty good. Well, I remember saying to my brother about Aldi and he was like, oh my God, why would you go there? Because like in England, Aldi is definitely not on the same level as one in Australia. So if you do move over here, it might be worth checking out Aldi because the food is way better quality than what you get back home. Like we'd buy stuff in England from Aldi and it would last like a day and it'd be all mouldy and I'd be like, oh my God, why did we buy that?
Port Slade Aldi, I have like vivid memories of like seeing this kind of manky looking fruit and veg, and I was like, I would never eat that. I wouldn't even wish my enemy to eat that. Like,
you know what else though was good about the Aldi over here is the middle section where you have all the random stuff you can buy, like the random sort of household things, like. What you get over here is actually really good. And the stuff that they were selling in the UK one was never really that good. So you can get some great items, especially for camping in Australia. You can get some really good camping equipment.
In that middle section, when you walk through and you kind of like, there's that kind of selection section.
Yeah, always really good. We've got good iron from there. Definitely trust the Aldi selection.
I would. Probably more than Kmart, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so don't underestimate that one at all.
Definitely.
Right.
Well, we have covered a lot. I think we've uncovered a lot of really awesome things about Australia. There's like so much. I mean, everything from craft beer, the open spaces. We've got like waterfalls and lagoons, and customer service is amazing. Like there's so much, so much. Craft beer is awesome.
And then we managed to talk about, somehow we managed to include ladyboys into this topic.
Ladyboys got in there somehow. Don't ask me how they got there.
I can't even remember what else we talked about. It's really random. I'm hoping that you're liking the randomness as much as we are, because that's pretty much what you're going to hear more of in this podcast series for sure.
And if you like what you hear, please leave a review wherever you're listening, in Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to your podcast. Please leave us a review. It'll help us. It'll help everybody else as well find us.
Absolutely.
And because we just love to share stuff. So that'd be good to share with more people.
And please subscribe as well, because when you subscribe, you'll be able to find out when our next episode is now live as well. We are obviously sharing that on our social media channels as well. So you can follow us on Instagram, which our handle is called the Expat Reality Podcast. And you can also follow our main account as well, which is the Londoner in Sydney on Instagram. And so follow those and you'll be able to find out way more information about our new podcast episodes coming out. So thanks so much for listening to our episode today, and we will be back next week with another brand new episode.
That's right. Be good to you, be good to all of you, and be well.
Be well.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye everyone.